Welcome on into another episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 71 of season 2025, and today it's AFLW Round 6 review, Round 7 preview episode. A lot to get through today, but before we do that, if you're new here, we do 2 episodes every single week, one on Monday, one on Thursday. Monday's episode every week is focused on the AFL men's competition, so go check out the previous episode, episode number 70, previewing all of the AFL Grand Final week coming up this weekend. So go check that out. Our second episode each week on Thursdays is our AFLW centric episode. So we review all the games, we preview the upcoming round of football, and keep you up to date with everything you need to know. AFLW. So that's the plan for today. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button, depending what platform you're listening or watching this on. It goes live on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts every single week. And don't forget to also check out all the social medias, All Aussie Rules, everywhere. Plenty of content at the moment, especially with AFL Men's season wrapping up right now. Plenty of content all over the internet from All Aussie Rules every single day. So go check it all out. Let's jump into the action from round 6 in the AFLW. We're officially halfway through the season, which is crazy to think. We're already halfway through the home and away season. And what did we learn this weekend, other than the fact that North Melbourne are an absolute mile ahead of the rest of the competition right now? No one's within 5, 6, maybe even more goals than them at the moment. From what we can tell, they are absolutely flying. I think the rest of the competition's actually very quite level at the moment, but it's just the fact that the Kangaroos are an absolute mile ahead of the rest. So it kicked off with Collingwood Hawthorn, and this was a close game in the end. Some inaccurate kicking by both teams, but especially Collingwood in this one. Certainly affected the result. You look at our team ratings that we do, and Collingwood were slightly ahead of Hawthorn overall. At quarter time, it was 2-4 for Hawthorn. They got a couple goals on fast breaks. When they got their ball movement going, they did look good, but overall, I think Collingwood put up a really good fight defensively. It was just a few times throughout the game that Hawthorn did manage to get over the back. At halftime, it was 3-5 to 0-6, and it looked like Hawthorn were kind of in control at this point, but the second half, mainly the last quarter, Collingwood did look quite good. It was 3-7 to 0-9 at three-quarter time, and it was a wonder if Collingwood were ever going to kick a goal. Hawthorn kicked the first of the final quarter to put it out by, 22 points, and you're thinking they were probably safe at this point. Collingwood finally got a goal through captain Ruby Schleicher early on in that final quarter, 4.5 minutes in. Then there was a bit of a stalemate for a few minutes where a couple behinds were kicked each way, before Collingwood got quick back-to-back goals through Porter and Centra. And that Porter goal was a really good snap as well. Good team goal from Collingwood. And you're thinking they're within a kick here. They might be able to steal this one. And then Jess Fukic from Hawthorn kicked a goal instantly, basically, from the centre bounce. It wasn't much after the Centra goal that she managed to get one as well. Just to give Hawthorn that breathing room, Collingwood did have a shot after the siren, but missed everything and ended up losing by 9 points. So Hawthorn, their season's going pretty solid. There's no doubt about that. They're not perfect. They have a little bit of things to work on, certainly if they want to catch Kangaroos, but they're sitting third on the ladder. They're 5 wins, 1 loss. That one loss to Adelaide the week before this one, so round 5. Big game coming up for them this week against Geelong. They played in what was probably game of the season last year, Hawthorn-Geelong. So hopefully we can have a rematch of that, and it will be certainly interesting to see how that plays out. But both teams looking pretty good. Geelong have won their last 3. So that's pretty big. Collingwood, I think we do a little bit of a stat thing at the moment here at All Aussie Rules, where obviously you can see the team ratings. We put that all together and come up with like an overall rating for each team, but also a difficulty rating of their season so far, especially in the AFLW where you're not playing every single opposition. I find it important to look at this because every team has a very, very different campaign, being that you play, 12 games and there's 18 teams. So there's 5 teams that every team doesn't play. So the strength of your schedule is very, very different in the AFLW compared to maybe the AFL men's, where at least in that one you do play every single team once throughout the season. And at the moment, Collingwood in that have the toughest schedule so far this year. You look at teams on the ladder who they've played so far in ladder position right now. So this is ignoring the ratings, but the ratings suggest it's very much the same, if not more so. They've played Kangaroos in first. They've played Melbourne in second. They've played Hawthorn in third. They've played Sydney in fifth. They've played Carlton in sixth. So 5 of their 6 games so far have been against top 6 teams. The one other game was GWS, who are 15th on the ladder. So that tells you that Collingwood have had a very, very tough run. The only team in the top 6 that they haven't played so far is Adelaide. So every team that's won at least 4 games this season, Collingwood has played. So I think they've improved a heap from where they were last year. They obviously finished bottom of the ladder last year, and now they've come out with, so far, the toughest schedule. Not all the AFL's fault, obviously. Melbourne and Sydney and Carlton of those 6 teams all weren't in finals last year. So, it's not the scheduling fault. It's just really, really unlucky in the way it's played out for them. And to think that they've got quite close to a couple of them. They beat Sydney, which was an extraordinarily good win from them. But they also only lost by a kick to Melbourne. They've lost by 9 points to Hawthorn. So I don't think they're going to be good enough to play finals this year. But I think we could genuinely see them win 5 or 6 games, which, if you had have said that at the start of the season, not many people would have believed you, I wouldn't imagine, because they had a really tough season last year. Yes, injuries hit them, and they have again this year, but they are certainly playing a lot better football this year so far. They've got the Doggies this week, and this is a genuine chance to really prove that they have taken a step this season. Back to this game, and just some key things, I guess. You can see who we've gone for in the league best and fairest, so that's basically the Brownlow for the AFLW. Liza West, 3 votes. Ash Santra, 2, and Lucy Wales, 1. Only the one multiple goal kicker in this one, it was Aine McDonough from Hawthorn. And other than that, I don't know if there was anything too exciting to talk about. Hawthorn looked pretty decent. When they move the ball, they do look really good. Overall, I think both these teams are showing some positive signs. Hawthorn definitely started the season a long way ahead of Collingwood, but I think Collingwood are closing the gap on these other teams. So that's basically the long and the short of the first game of the round. We'll move into the second game. And we've got Port Adelaide Geelong. This was over in Adelaide, and it was kind of a arm wrestle for fair chunks of it. Geelong obviously win by 5 points in the end. They led through the first quarter, 10-0. By halftime, Port Adelaide had snatched a little lead by 1 point, 25-24, thanks to a couple quick goals in succession early in the quarter through Pope and Goody, and then a bit later in the quarter after Geelong had got a goal through Crockett Grills to give them the Parry and then Crockett Grills to give them the lead back. Port Adelaide late in the quarter. Schultze and Houghton, a couple big players for Port Adelaide this season and last season as well, kicked a couple goals to give Port Adelaide the 1 point lead at half time. Geelong got the first and only goal of the third quarter through Nina Morrison pretty early on to lead by 5 points going into the final quarter, and then it was goal for goal. So Port Adelaide got the first, took the lead through Indy Tahu. Aisling Maloney kicked one to give Geelong the lead back. Indy Tahu got a second goal of the final quarter to give the Port Adelaide Power their lead back again before halfway through the final quarter. Michaela Bowen got the final goal of the match for Geelong, and they held on to win by 5 points. Not the prettiest game either way here. I think Geelong certainly looked the better team overall. The rating suggests that. Port Adelaide just haven't found the same form that they did last year. I was I guess, pre-season and certainly last season, suggesting that Port Adelaide, yes, they got on a really good winning streak late in the season last year. I don't think it was always terribly great. Like, I don't think the strength of the opposition last year was great for them. They had a slightly easier run, I think, and that kind of helped it. I know they did end up beating Hawthorn in a semi-final and they beat Richmond in an elimination final. They made a prelim, but they just felt like they were a little bit off, and it doesn't feel like they've progressed at all from season 24 to 25, and that's meant that a few other teams have passed them, is my thoughts on Port Adelaide. I could be wrong. That's just where I see it at the moment. Their best is still pretty solid and can play against most other opposition. Like, they smashed Gold Coast. They beat Melbourne last week, which is a really good win, don't get me wrong. But when they're playing this one against Geelong, Geelong looked better than them. They got beaten reasonably easily by West Coast a couple of weeks ago, and North Melbourne absolutely smacked them. So I think they still have a way to go if they want to play finals this year. They've got a bit of work to do after right now they're sitting 2 and 4. The percentage is getting back a little bit more healthy after that Kangaroos game really blew it out. They play St Kilda this week. They win it. Their season's still alive at 3 and 4. If they were to lose to St Kilda this week, it's a different story. They might be in a lot of trouble at trying to go to finals again for the second year in a row. Geelong, they sneak into the 8th spot on the ladder with this win. They're 3 and 3. Massive game this week against Hawthorn. I think that's on the Thursday night game. Winner of that really sets themselves up. I mean, either way, Hawthorn are going to be 4 and 2 at worst, or 6 and 1. If they're 6 and 1, top 4 is really, really on for the Hawks. If they drop to 4 and 2, then they're back in that scrap for the low spots of the top 4. Whereas Geelong win this, all of a sudden, maybe, just maybe, they could be a team that's looking at still an opportunity for top 4, which would be really good after losing their first 3 games of the season. Granted, they were against some quality opposition. Their 3 wins, though, have not perhaps been against teams that are playing that great football so far this year. So this is an important game for them. To get a win against good opposition is very important, I think, for Geelong's season. League best and fairest votes in this one we went. Michaela Bowen from Geelong, then Matilda Schultz from Port Adelaide, Georgie Prespakis from Geelong. Only multiple goal kickers in this one were Indy Tahu and Nina Morrison, who had 18 touches and 2 goals. So a really good game from Nina Morrison. 9 tackles as well. Moving on to the next game of football, and it was another domination by the Kangaroos. Their season continues to absolutely fly. There was very little amounts of this game where you considered Carlton a genuine chance to even be a slight upset here. Kangaroos kicked the first 2, the only 2 of the first quarter. They were pretty early in the game. Ash Riddell and Alice O'Loughlin, who's going to be missing some football due to injury, kicked by the 5-minute mark. They had 2 on the board. They led by 14-1 at quarter time. Half time, it had extended out to 33-8, and it was feeling very much like this was going to be just another stroll in the park for the Kangaroos. I know they do try hard, but it certainly looks like they're in easy mode. Quite a lot of football, if I'm being completely honest. Third quarter, more of the same. They kicked a couple quick ones early. Bruton and Jazzy Garner got goals early. Then they got another one through Bogue late. And then Sophie Mackay got one real late in the quarter, just to give a little bit of consolation going into 3-quarter time for the Blues. They were down by more than 6 goals at 3-quarter time. And then the final quarter, it was another 4 goals to 2. So that tells you everything you need to know. It was just kind of one-way traffic throughout most of this game. The Kangaroos certainly looked the better team, as we kind of expect. The team rating there suggests everything you need to know. 72-50 is a fair difference between the two teams. They dominated all the stats. Inside 50s was 55 to 21. So that tells you what you need to know. Clearance numbers were massive in favour of the Roos as well. It's looking more and more like nobody's going to be able to reach the level that the Kangaroos are at the moment. They've certainly set the bar for everyone to try and chase, and right now it's very, very difficult to see anyone actually catching them. League best and fairest votes here. We've gone Ash Riddell 3, Jazzy Garner 2, Amy Smith 1 vote. So all Kangaroos players. Ash Riddell had another 44 disposals. It's just every single week Ash is just racking them up. There is no way right now, if Ash plays the whole season, that she won't end up with like an AFLW record for most amount of disposals per game, because the ridiculous numbers that Ash is getting every week is just like absolutely ludicrous. You're looking at the last few weeks, for example, she's already gone past 40 disposals 3 times in 6 matches. But we've gone 28, 43, 40, 36, 34, and 44. So after 6 weeks, averaging 37.5 disposals per game is ridiculous. Still averaging 6 clearances, over 5 tackles per game. Has kicked 3 goals as well. Absurd numbers. So 3 votes for Ash Riddell. Jazzy Garner, another one that's absolutely flying. Missed a couple games due to injury. They're in the middle, but the season that Jasmine Garner's put together is pretty absurd as well, in all honesty. Only missed 1 game, 1.5 games. The 4 full games that Jasmine Garner's played is 25 touches and a goal, 31 touches, 6 goals. The game that was cut short was 9 touches, 1 goal. Then came back and had 25 and a goal and 31 and 2 goals. These two are just unstoppable. If they're out on the field, good luck stopping them, because they rack up the disposals, they kick in goals, and pretty much just nobody can stop them right now. They are absolutely flying. So the multiple goal kickers in this one, Talia Randall, Alice O'Loughlin, and Jasmine Garner for the Kangaroos, and Tara Bohanna has kicked another 2 here for the Carlton Blues. What's that mean for both teams? Kangaroos, they're a game clear and a lot of percentage on top. 6 wins from 6 games. Nothing's gone wrong for them so far. A couple minor injuries here and there. Alice O'Loughlin obviously out for a bit, I think. I don't know if we've got a time frame on that yet. But like, they just keep going, and they've got depth all across the ground. It would take quite a few injuries, I think, to halt them at the moment. So yeah, they're a game clear. Carlton, they're still in a really healthy spot. 4 wins, 2 losses for the year. Massive game for them this weekend coming up against Fremantle. They win that one, they stay within reach of this top 4, but more importantly, they're putting gap on the teams that are fighting for that top 8 spots. So huge, huge ramifications coming up this weekend for Carlton either way. Moving into the next game, it was Fremantle-Essendon. This was your Saturday afternoon game. This was at Fremantle Oval, and the Dockers absolutely finally showed what they're capable of. We kind of all expected at times early season, pre-season, that we're going to see a pretty good Fremantle team this year, I think, and they showed that in week 1 when they beat Port Adelaide, and then the next few weeks they really, really struggled to show that again. But this might have been it. Essendon have really struggled over recent weeks, I know, but this was a really good performance. There was no score for a fair chunk of this game, first 12 minutes, but then Fremantle went 4 goals in about 5 minutes, roughly. Maybe, yeah, about 5 minutes. McCarthy kicked the first 2, then Brisbane and O'Sullivan kicked them. So they were 4 goals up at quarter time. It was 6 goals to 0 at halftime, 37-1. 7 goals to 0 at 3-quarter time, 43-1. And then the final quarter was when Essendon finally kicked a goal. It was Daria Bannister 6 minutes into that final quarter. But then Freo kicked the last 2 of the game to win it, 56-8. Pretty comfortable. Team rating on the screen suggests all you need to know about this game. Fremantle by far were the more impressive team in this game. Plus 16 inside 50s, couple extra clearances, really dominated contested football. And just tackle game was huge for Freo as well. Plus 30 in the end. They went over 15 more than their average. So a really, really good performance from the Dockers. Our league best and fairest votes, we've gone Gabrielle Newton, 3 votes, Kiara Bowers, 2 votes, and Aisling McCarthy, 1 vote. An incredible individual stat in this game. Kiara Bowers, 21 tackles, 23 disposals, 21 tackles. That's just absurd numbers. There's no two ways about it. 21 tackles is ridiculous in a game of football. Yeah, we always get big tackle numbers from Kiara Bowers, to be fair. Like this year, averaging 12.2. 2023 averaged 12.2. 2022 averaged 11.5, 14.5, 11, 14, 11. So pretty much all the time throughout the career, you are getting some big numbers in tackles from Kiara Bowers, but 21 is insanely big. And averaging over 12 this season so far, as well as 20 touches per game. So, yeah, really impressive effort from Kiara so far this year. Multiple goal kickers, only the one, Aisling McCarthy, who kicked the first 2, and they were the only 2 that she kicked for the match. I think I did BNF votes, didn't I? Newton, Bowers, McCarthy. If I didn't, we'll be doing a leaderboard in about once we've gone through the 9 matches. So stick around and check that out as well, just to see how the league is shaping up, I guess, in the BNF so far this year. What's that mean? Fremantle maybe are rescuing their season. Their percentage is still absolutely terrible and needs a lot of work, but they're 3-3. They're back to level playing field in that regard. They still need to fix their percentage. They've got Carlton this week. If they can win that, their season is well and truly alive again. After a really rough start, 2 wins in a row, it has been huge for them. 3 in a row would be absolutely massive. The Bombers, they're 3-3 still, but they won their first 3, lost their next 3, and they come up against the Kangaroos this week, which is by far the hardest challenge in football. So you would imagine that might be a loss for them, and all of a sudden, finals is looking way out of reach for them. They have not looked good in the last 3 games that they've played. Moving over to Sunday football, and this was by far the biggest upset of the weekend. Maybe the only real, genuine upset of the weekend. But boy, oh boy, was it a boil over. The Sydney Derby and the Giants get the win. 49-42, plus 7 points there. And it came from nowhere. A really, really good second half performance mainly. But wowee, who saw this coming? First quarter was a bit hit and miss for both teams, 2 goals apiece. And it was, you thought, oh, maybe it's going to be a good game. I don't know if we fully were convinced at quarter time, though. Giants got the first of the second quarter, and I was like, maybe, just maybe. And then the Swans turned it on midway through that second quarter, which just made you feel like, yep, okay, Swans have turned up. It took them all game last week to get going. Final quarter, they finally started to show something against Collingwood. And then this week, quarter 2, they did that, and it was like, okay, here we go. They're back. Zippy Fish kicked one at the 6.5 minute mark. Paris McCarthy got one straight after that, and then Tanya Kennedy got one. And that put them just over 10 points up halfway through that third quarter. Second quarter, sorry. And you were thinking, yep, here we go. Swans are on. Tony Evans got one late for the Giants to get them back to 7 points down at halftime. And then Swans didn't manage a goal in the third quarter. Giants kicked 2 more. And at this point, you're thinking, wow, Giants are 6 points up. Could it be? Could it be? Cynthia Hamilton kicked one of the quickest goals you'll see, 16 seconds into the fourth quarter, which tied the game up. And now you're thinking, okay, they'll settle here. But nope, Brodie Mowbray kicked a goal for the Giants to give them the lead back. And then it was a few behinds each way and ended up with a Giants win, which is crazy. Giants are rated above Sydney in the game as well, so I just feel like they played really well. It's the best game of football I think I've seen the Giants play in at least 2 seasons. So all of last year and this year, this was their best performance. I think hands down. Yeah, Sydney dominated clearances plus 13. Inside 50 numbers were pretty level, but it was uncontested football. Giants looked after the football really well, got the ball into space and really used it quite well. And I think that's the difference here. They just, when the game was in the open, they looked better than Sydney. It's pretty simple. League best and fairest votes were Gonzalo Goldsworthy, 3 votes, Tanya Kennedy, 2, and Rebecca Beeson, 1 vote. Multiple goal kickers were Brodie Mowbray and Zippy Fish. Both kicked 2 each. Anything else worth noting? Probably not in terms of stats and individual efforts, but just a really good team performance from the Giants. I was really quite impressed by it. What does that mean going forward for both these teams? Sydney, back-to-back losses. They're now 4-2. Their percentage is still really healthy, but they need to get back on the winners list. And it's going to be a big, tough game this weekend. They play the Crows. Winner of that really sets themselves up for a top 4 finish. The loser maybe will be fighting. I think Sydney have the Kangaroos coming up next week as well. So Adelaide into the Kangaroos is about as tough a 2 weeks as you can get in AFLW. So winning this one against the Crows is probably very, very important if Sydney want to be top 4. But if they lose both, all of a sudden, even top 8 is starting to be, maybe that's not a safe bet. So we'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks. But pretty important that they win against the Crows this week, I would say. The Giants, meanwhile, they're sitting 15th on the ladder with back-to-back wins and their first back-to-back wins in like 4 years or something ridiculous. They play the Eagles this week. It's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. But back-to-back wins going into the Eagles. If they were to win 3 in a row, I might fall off my chair, to be fair. But I certainly wouldn't rule them out after beating Sydney this week. It was a really, really solid performance from them. Next game, Melbourne West Coast. This one, West Coast, probably worst performance of the season so far, I would say. Melbourne's back to their best. I mean, not that they really lost their best so far this season, but over the previous few weeks, they'd only just beaten Collingwood. They did comfortably beat the Tigers before losing to Port Adelaide by 2 points last week. Back on the winners list here with an absolute dominant performance against West Coast. It was in Melbourne. It was at Casey Fields, Melbourne Demons' home ground. But that first quarter and a half by Eden Zanker especially was absolutely incredible. Kicked the first 2, Eden Zanker, and then had 3, kicked the only 3 goals of the second quarter as well. So by the 8-minute mark of the second quarter, had kicked 5 goals, 1. And you're thinking, wow, how many will she kick today? Didn't kick any more after that, but a really, really good, impressive performance. Has threatened a big game multiple times this year. So to kick 5 this one, I think is well deserved. 7 goals to 0 at halftime, 10 goals to 0 at 3-quarter time, up 67 points were the Demons at 3-quarter time. Final quarter, 0 goals to Melbourne to 3 goals for the Eagles. Just to get a little bit out of the game. The Eagles did finish their game okay. But it was just way, way too little, too late. Lose by 51 points, not ideal in any situation. Team rating there tells you everything you need to know. Plus 20 points for the Melbourne Demons. League best and fairest votes, we went Eden Zanker 3. 5 goals in a quarter and a half to put the game to bed was an absolutely unbelievably good performance. Elizabeth McNamara gets the 2 votes, and Charlotte Thomas, I've gone with 1 vote for the Eagles there. Anything noteworthy from the team stats? Plus 22 inside 50s for the Demons, so they certainly controlled that area. They had 6 extra clearances. They dominated contested football. Eagles just struggled to get much of the football, and when they did, they turned it over quite a lot. 64 turnovers to 54. They couldn't win the ball back. It's pretty simple. Your multiple goal scorers, as we said, Zanker with 5, Kate Hoare kicked 2 again. I mean, when does Kate Hall not kick goals? And Taylor Harris also kicked 2 goals in this one. By the way, you can see my MVP votes in every single game. We'll do the leaderboard for that shortly as well. But basically, we'll explain how we do that shortly when we get to the leaderboard. Not much else to say about this game other than Melbourne just controlled it. Eagles really need to bounce back this coming week because they've had back-to-back losses. Melbourne, second on the ladder. Their percentage really healthy, 243.2, 5 wins, 1 loss. They have Gold Coast this week, who are currently 17th on the ladder. If they manage to win this one comfortably as well, you can almost say that they're almost certainly going to finish top 4. I know it's still a long way to go and they could fall apart, but it's really looking quite positive for the Demons this year. They almost, at the moment, I would say I wouldn't say clearly, but I think they look like the second best team behind the Kangaroos. Meanwhile, Eagles back-to-back losses. They play the Giants this week in what is as important game as they've had almost in their history. They obviously, if they want to play finals, they need to win games like this week against GWS to give themselves any chance, and they should. They should come out and win that one, I think, is basically how I see it. So next up was the Doggies hosting Brisbane at Whitten Oval, and Brisbane end up winning quite comfortably, 6-11, 47, 3-4, 22, 25-point winners. Not the most impressive game from the Brisbane Lions this season. I think they're still a little bit off their best, if we're being completely honest, but they got the job done. I don't think the Bulldogs are as bad as their record and some of their performances have shown, but once again, they just feel like a team that's perhaps not performing quite at their best. And I don't think they're as bad as they were last year. Certainly, their worst last year was really, really bad, whereas their good was pretty decent. Whereas this year, their bad seems okay, and their good still seems decent. So I think improvements have been made, but they've still got a bit of work to do. It was 1-0 quarter time. It was 3-1 at halftime. 33-15 at 3/4 time, and ends up being a 25-point win for the Brisbane Lions. Comfortable in the stat sheet, I think. Team rating plus 15, so they did good without being outstanding. League best and fairest votes, we went Ali Anderson 3, Sophie Conway 2, and Riley Wilcox, who's had an outstanding season so far, in my opinion, gets the 1 vote. Interesting things to note, just 23 inside 50s for the Bulldogs. That's one of the big issues they've got, is getting the ball inside 50 and also getting scores on the board has been a bit of a problem for the Dogs, certainly recently, but throughout most of this season so far. 35 inside 50s for the Lions suggests that they control that area. Bulldogs had more clearances in this game than inside 50s, so that is not a great sign. Uncontested football was completely Brisbane, and that basically tells you everything you need to know. Jumping into the individual players, multiple goal scorers, there was 3 of them, 2 for the Lions, Taylor Smith and Nisa Dooley. And for the Bulldogs, it was Louise Stevenson kicking the 2 goals. Moving along, what else do we need to know about this game? I don't think there was anything too exciting on the stat sheet, if we're being completely honest. It was a Brisbane game that was probably where Brisbane are at their best, where they share the load between a lot of players. Ali Anderson was probably their best, but they had a lot of players play a really good role in this game, and that's where Brisbane are at their best, when they have a lot of key contributors and not the standout performances like you see from some other teams where 1 or 2 players have to perform well if they are to win the game. So overall, Brisbane did what they needed to. Bulldogs, they've still got a bit of work to do to catch up the rest of the field, I think. Brisbane gets them in the 8, they're 3-3. Their percentage is really healthy. They play the currently winless Richmond Tigers this weekend on Sunday, I believe that game is. A really good opportunity for them to to finally win back-to-back games for the first time this season. So far, they've gone loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. So an opportunity for them to finally break that streak, get themselves into the positives, and maybe build a really big second half to make another run towards a premiership or a grand final. Obviously, they have played in the last couple grand finals, winning the first one, losing last year. They've got a bit of work to do to get there, but they're certainly improving. The Doggies, they're 1-5 across the 6 weeks so far. Their defense holds up pretty well compared to most of the teams around them on the ladder. They're giving up pretty low score, in all honesty, only 243 points against so far across the 6 games. Whereas you look at where that ranks them, teams in the top 8 are very similar. There's Sydney 233, there's Carlton 232, there's Brisbane 251, and Geelong 262 points against. So all those teams within 10 or so points either way of what the Bulldogs have done defensively this year suggests that their defense is holding up. But the problem is they have a real inability to score points at the moment. 150 points for the season is the lowest in the competition. 22 points behind anybody else. So it's not a massive gap to the rest, but it's at least 4 points per game to Richmond and to anybody else outside of Richmond and Collingwood, and Hawthorn, who are kind of like the one really obscure one to only have 183 points kicked, but have won 5 games so far, is really weird. But the Doggies offensively are really struggling to put scores on the board. But the positive is defensively, they're not getting broken open. Certainly like they were last season at times where they got absolutely pumped, like 70, 80 points in multiple games early season. So that's the positive there for them. Moving on to the next one. This was the second last game of round 6, and it was St Kilda hosting Richmond, and St Kilda kept the Tigers winless. Wasn't the most impressive win by the Saints. The Tigers actually were leading for a fair chunk of the first half. When Ellie McKenzie kicked a goal 7 minutes into the second quarter, they were looking okay. 12 points up, I think it was, at this point. And not looking fantastic, but certainly looking in the game. It was a couple late goals in that second quarter. One to Anderson and one to Patrikos for St Kilda. Just got them ahead of the ledger going into half-time. The Tigers did kick the first. Again, Ellie McKenzie of the third quarter, and the only of the third quarter. They were up by 7 points at three-quarter time, but they couldn't stop the Saints in the last quarter, who kicked the first 3. Bascara, Ashley Richards, and Jesse Wardlaw kicked a ripper to kind of seal the game before Caitlin Grazier did kick a consolation goal late, but it was a little too late. The Tigers lose by 7 points. They go 0-6 to start the year. The Saints, they keep their season alive. It wasn't a fantastic performance. It wasn't great. They're going to have to do a lot better than that if they want to genuinely have a run at finals this year. I think they're still a little bit off that, in my eyes at least. But it was at least a win. They got the 4 points. Team rating suggests it was a pretty close game. +6 is not a big discrepancy between the two teams, if we're being completely honest. League best and fairest votes, we went Jamie Lambert, 3 votes for St Kilda. Ellie McKenzie for the Tigers, 2 votes. And Serene Watson, 1 vote. A lot of the numbers similar for both teams. +5 inside 50s for the Tigers is an interesting one, as well as +7 clearances. But I think it was just efficiency in the end, creating slightly better chances for St Kilda and making use of those chances. Ends up winning them this game. Multiple goal scorer, only one was Ellie McKenzie. 25 touches, 2 goals was really, really good for the Tigers. And I think the most interesting thing to note from this game is for the first time this season, Mon Conti was not Richmond's highest rated player. Only a 5th highest rated was Mon in this one. Still a really good game. Just obviously a lot lower than normal for her. But yeah, that basically is the most interesting thing for Richmond. I think this game was for the first time not number one rated player. St Kilda, they're 10th on the ladder, 3-3. They've won 2 in a row just to get their season back on a little bit of track. Granted, it's been Essendon and Richmond who are two teams in really, really bad form at the moment. So this week is an important one. It's a team that's slightly below them on the ladder, 2 wins, 4 losses, but did play finals last year in Port Adelaide. If they can win that one, finals is definite possibility. If they lose this one, finals is going to be tough because teams like Fremantle and Port Adelaide are both below them at the moment, but going to be pushing in the second half of the season to try and make finals, I think. So a big one for them. Tigers, as we said, they play Brisbane this weekend. I think they're good enough to win a game this season. I don't think it's going to be against Brisbane Lions, though, who are playing some really good football. Moving on, that's all the games. So we'll jump. No, it's not all the games. There's one more to go. Hold. Pump the brakes. I missed one. We've got Gold Coast Adelaide is how we finished out the round. I don't know why I got ahead of myself there. Gold Coast hosted Adelaide, and what was this game of football? 3/4 time, it looked like the Suns had done it, that they'd shocked Adelaide Crows, but not for the first time this year. The Crows put in 1 quarter of football, and it was the final quarter, and it was good enough to win the game. Up until that point, Adelaide kicked the first goal of the match, and then did not kick another one until the final quarter. It was 4-1. It was plus 15 points for Gold Coast at 3/4 time, and then it was an absolute avalanche. Anne Hatchard, Eloise Jones, Niam Kelly, Anne Hatchard, Ebony Marinoff, and Anne Hatchard kicked goals through that, how many minutes of a streak was it? 14 minutes. Less than 14 minutes. Just over 13 minutes. Adelaide kicked 6 goals to tear the game apart. 6 goals won to 0-0 in that 13-minute period. Is all they needed to do offensively to win this game, which is absolutely absurd. It shows how good this team can be. They're another team that I think is just slightly off where they were last year, but at the same time, they're getting enough wins to stay in contention of that top 4. And that's pretty big at the moment. The Gold Coast Suns did get a consolation goal late in that one through Depay, but it was too little too late. Team ratings suggest that Adelaide were slightly better than them on the day, but not a massive margin there. Plus 8 inside 50s. A lot of that obviously late. Gold Coast really good in the clearance game. Not that surprising. They are a good clearance team. League best and fairest votes, we went Charlie Rowbottom in the losing team for the Gold Coast Suns with 3, and Hatchard for kicking 3 goals in the final quarter gets 2 votes, and Sarah Goodwin gets the 1 vote. Ebony Marinoff certainly is in contention for votes here as well. Had 32 touches and a goal, but Charlie Rowbottom, 30 touches, a goal, 7 clearances, 12 tackles was absolutely huge. And yeah, outside of that, I don't know what else to say other than Adelaide just did what they needed to. And Hatchard kicked 3 goals, and the other multiple goal scorer was Jamie Stanton for the Gold Coast Suns, kicking 2 goals. Where's that sit? Both teams, Adelaide 4th on the ladder, 4 wins, 2 losses. After losing their first game, they've really got their season going. Big game against the Sydney Swans this week. They win this, they really set themselves up for a tilt at the top, probably 2 or 3 spots on the ladder in the run home for the season. Meanwhile, the Gold Coast Suns, they've won just 1 game this season, which was a few weeks ago. They play the Melbourne Demons this coming weekend. It's a really tough one for them. You'd say it's going to be a tough one. Hard to see them winning it, but they did play some decent football at times last weekend. So if they can replicate that, maybe they can be competitive, but this will be another tough matchup for them this weekend. I think this time we're officially through all the matches. So let's have a look at how my tips went for the weekend. And we went 8 out of 9. we started off with not just getting the correct team in the first one, Hawthorn, but we got the exact margin, Hawthorn by 9 points, which is good and probably the best game of the weekend to get the right margin, because in most tipping competitions, the margin is on the first game. So a little tick for us there. I actually said in my actual footy tipping, Hawthorn by 8. So I was 1 point off in that one, which makes me a little bit sad once I saw that I actually tipped them by 9 on the podcast. So it is what it is. We get it right, and correct margin's crazy. Game 2, we went on Geelong by 13. They won by 5, so pretty good tip there as well. Kangaroos, we didn't expect would quite win by 53. We said 29. Fremantle absolutely smoked the Bombers by a lot more than we thought. Bombers are really struggling. Then we got our one wrong. Sydney did not show up against the GWS. I thought they were going to bounce back after a loss against Collingwood, but they struggled again this week. Melbourne, they smoked Eagles. We did not expect the Eagles to put in that bad of a performance, but Melbourne won by 51. Brisbane won by 25, so not too bad on the margin front there. St Kilda won by 7, so once again, within a kick there, so yeah, we got a good margin on that one, and Adelaide won by 16 on the final game, so not too shabby there. We go 8 out of 9, 38 out of 54 for the season, so we're doing pretty solid. We've had one bad week. Outside of that, every other week has been really quite good, in my opinion. Our league best and fairest after round 6. So this is the 3-2-1 that we give in every single game. Doesn't necessarily go to who I think were the best 3 players. It's more what I see the umpires voting for, similar to how I do my Brownlow predictions. Ash Riddell out in front on 16. Absolute outstanding. We've mentioned her stats earlier in this episode. Absolutely fantastic season from her. Kate Hoare, 12 votes in second, putting together a really fine season as well. Georgie Prasparkas from Geelong with 11 votes, doing really well. Then a whole, 5 players on 9 votes. We've got Ali Anderson from Brisbane, Dana Finn from Carlton, Liza West from Hawthorn, Jazzy Garner from North Melbourne, and Ella Roberts from the Eagles, all on 9. And then last year's winner, Ebony Marinoff, Brittany Benici, Georgia Nanscarwin from the Bombers, Tiana Smith from the Saints, and Isabel Pritchard, all sitting on 8. So at the moment, we've got a bit of a runaway leader in Ash Riddell. It's going to be very, very difficult, I think, for anyone to catch her. Most likely is her teammate in Jasmine Garner, which is absolutely absurd. MVP votes. As we have shown, if you're watching the video of this and not just listening, each match we have posted the top 5 players from both teams who get votes in the MVP each week. Basically, top 5 rated players in our All Aussie Rules rating system get votes for every single team. The winning team get 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 votes, whereas the losing team get half of that, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So after round 6, Ash Riddell leads that as well on 42 votes. Next up is Kate Hoare and Ebony Marinoff on 39 apiece. And then it's Georgia Nanscarwin and Georgie Prasparkas, both on 38. With Jasmine Garner as well, is also on 38. Seeing she missed a game and a half, that's an incredible effort. Kiara Bowers, Lucy Wales, and Ella Roberts all on 37. Laura Gardner on 34. Ali Anderson on 33. Chloe Malloy on 31. And then it's Eliza West and Tiana Smith, both on 29 after round 6. That's how it shapes up. We're going to now jump into our quick little round 7 preview. So let's jump into that now. All right, kicking off on a Thursday night this week. We're back to Thursday night football, and it is a cracker. It was probably game of the season last year, these two teams going at it. It was an absolute ripper. Down at GMHBA Stadium, it's Geelong hosting Hawthorn. Both teams pushing for a potential top 4 spot. It should be a cracker. Hawthorn obviously not putting up great scores so far this year. Their offense is maybe struggling just a little bit overall, but they're getting the wins, and that is the big part of their season. They're 5-1, and things going great. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, Geelong started their season against three really tough opponents, lost them all, and things were looking like shaping up like last year, where they started too slow and couldn't catch it up. But they've quickly turned that around and won their last three going into this game. All of a sudden, it's game back on for the Cats. And if they can beat the Hawks this week, it would really get their season rolling. Moving on to Friday football. Yes, you heard that right. Friday football. No football on Saturday this week in the AFLW due to the AFL Grand Final day. So they've got 4 games happening on a Friday, kicking off at 1:05 Australian Eastern Standard Time at Casey Fields. It's Melbourne v the Gold Coast Suns. This will be an interesting one. Second on the ladder v 17th on the ladder. Can Gold Coast put up a fight? Multiple teams have been fighting pretty well against the Demons of recent. There's been a few close games that the Demons have had. You look at it outside of last week, it was 2 points to loss to Port Adelaide. A couple of weeks before that, a 4-point win against Collingwood. I don't think Gold Coast can genuinely put up much of a fight in this one, but we'll see how it goes. I think Melbourne will be way too strong based on what we've seen this season. And, I mean, the recent history between these two teams suggests Melbourne will be too good as well. Last time they met, round 8, 2022. So it has been a while. But the Demons won that one by 49 points. Next up, we move across town at 3:05, so straight after that game, to Windy Hill. And it is the Bombers, it is the Roos, and this will not surprise anyone to suggest that it's going to be a blowout. I would be absolutely shocked if it wasn't a blowout. We get 2 games on Channel 7 this Friday. This is the first of the night game between Bulldogs and Collingwood's the other one. It's hard to see a world where the Bombers genuinely compete based on what we've seen so far this year. They've only met once in the history. It was round 8 last year, and the Roos won it by 51 points pretty convincingly. The way the Bombers have played the last 3 weeks, it's hard to see this being any different. The last 2 weeks, the Bombers have kicked 8 in both of those, meanwhile conceding 9 goals in both of them. So offensively, they've completely lost their ability to score, and defensively, the last 3 weeks, the teams have basically kicked 9 goals. 9 goals 2 last week, 9 goals 6 the week before, and 8 goals 10 3 weeks ago. So they're really struggling. On the other side of the fence, Kangaroos are doing nothing wrong. Their scores offensively, 87, 114, 58, 65, 79 the last 5. And defensively, the most they've given up is 36 all season. Last week was 26, and there's been a lot of scores in the teens. So things are just absolutely flying for the Kangaroos, and it's hard to see a world where that doesn't continue this week. Next up, we go to Icon Park, so staying in Melbourne. Just once again, not that far from Windy Hill, and it's it's not the Kangaroos. We've already had the Kangaroos. It's Carlton and it's Fremantle at Icon. Friday evening game, so 5:05. This is game to game to game to game, so no overlap here with any of these 4 matches on Friday. The Blues will going into this as favourites, not that surprising. They're 6th on the ladder, Freo are 12th on the ladder. They met once last year. The Blues won it by 4 points over in the West, which was a massive, massive result in the context of the season. The way the Blues had been playing, you didn't expect it at all. So it was huge that day. Maybe they can do that again. They are expected to win this one, of course. They drew the time before that they met, which was back in 2022. So that's a little interesting fact, I guess, for you. The Blues season is going really well. They overperformed what most people expected. They're playing some really good football. They beat Brisbane and then followed that with Bulldogs and Gold Coast wins. So they're really good wins. Their other win this season was Collingwood. And their 2 losses, 8 points to Hawthorn, not a bad result. And, 53 points sounds bad to the Kangaroos, but nobody's getting close to the Kangaroos so far this year. So I don't think that's a bad result either. So they're putting together a really confident and solid start to their year, and they're playing some exciting football, which It's funny for me to say, as somebody that doesn't like Carlton Football Club too much, certainly in the men's, I do enjoy watching them play in the AFLW. So um, there's something to be said for that, I guess. On the other side of the fence, Fremantle started great, beating Port Adelaide before falling massively to Brisbane and the Kangaroos, and then getting beaten comfortably enough by Sydney. And they were looking quite bad at this point at 1-3, but they have turned it around, winning the derby and then comfortably beating the Bombers last week, just to get their season back rolling. If they can put together a third win in a row here, it's game on again for the season. So we'll see if they can follow through with that. We'll wait and find out, I guess, on the weekend. Friday night football is a big one in context of both teams' seasons. It's the Bulldogs hosting Collingwood, and Collingwood are the favourites. They met once last year, and the Doggies won it big. 42 points. Collingwood had no answer. Obviously, both teams not having a great season last year. 2022 was the previous time they met, and Collingwood won it by 5 points. Collingwood have looked pretty good this year. I'm just putting it out there. You take out, well, round one against Carlton, they weren't terrible. Carlton certainly looked better than them, but I think they've developed and grown week in, week out. Their recent form has been against some really good opposition outside of the Giants in round two. Their next 4 games have been against teams that have really good records this year. Melbourne lost by 4 points, only 45 points they lost by to the Kangaroos, so that actually sounds okay. They beat Sydney comfortably, and last week only just lost by 9 points to Hawthorn. So put together a really solid start to their season for a team that finished wooden spoon last year and has had a really, really difficult task so far. Bulldogs, they looked good in round 2 when they beat the Tigers. Since then, well, round 3 actually looked really good. 4-point loss to Hawthorn. They put up a fight. But after that, it's not been quite so good. 16-point losers to Carlton. The 21-point loss to GWS looked bad, but Giants have put 2 in a row, so maybe that's not as bad as we thought. And 25 points to Brisbane isn't too bad either. I certainly won't be writing them off in this game. It is a game that I can see them matching up reasonably well with Collingwood. So whoever loses, I mean, you can put a pin in their season. Whoever wins this one, though, you can pencil them in for probably an improvement on last season's efforts. We now move all the way across to Sunday. As we said, no football on Saturday in the AFLW this weekend. And we have 4 more games. We kick it off Sunday afternoon, RSEA Park, St Kilda's home ground, hosting Port Adelaide. Who knows who will end up starting favourites? At the moment, it's slightly Port Adelaide. I would imagine they're a slightly better team overall. They met once last year. Port Adelaide won it by 15 points. St Kilda, 3-3. They've won their last 2, beating Richmond and the Bombers. Port Adelaide, they've gone loss, loss, win, loss, win, loss. They need to start winning some games and winning games back to back. 2 close games in a row, just beating Melbourne, followed by just losing to Geelong. They need to win this if they want to play finals. They're 2-4. 2-5 would almost be... It wouldn't officially be done. You can get on a run and win 5-6 in a row and you're back in the contention. But in all honesty, you're definitely going to need minimum 6 wins to play finals, but you're probably going to need 7 at least, I would say. So they would have to win 5 games. If they lose this week, that gets quite difficult because there's only 5 games left after this week. St Kilda, on the other hand, they win this. Finals is a genuine chance. They lose, and kind of like Port Adelaide, you got to start winning quite a few games. But I think more was expected of Port Adelaide than St Kilda, due mainly to last year's results. Obviously, St Kilda were not in contention with anyone, whereas Port Adelaide played finals football and made it to a prelim final. So, yeah, that's where we see it. I think Port Adelaide should be too strong. If these 2 teams play the way I expect the game to go, I would expect Port Adelaide to be too strong. Next up is one of the games of the round. It's Adelaide-Sydney, another game with massive, massive ramifications. One of only 3 games that are not in Victoria this week, and all 3 of those are these Sunday afternoon games. So this one, Adelaide, Sydney, Both teams right in contention, 4th v 5th on the ladder. Both teams 4-2. However, Sydney's last 2 matches have been their 2 losses, losing to Collingwood and GWS, who are both teams not in finals contention. They looked so good through the first 4 weeks, Sydney Swans. The last 2 weeks has looked completely different. And as we said earlier in this episode, they play Kangaroos next week. So this is a very, very important game for them. The Crows are starting to show some signs here and there that they are a genuine finals team. They're not looking their best. I think they've got a lot of room to improve to get back to where they were last year. But overall, I think they are still a genuine top 4 chance. These 2 teams have only ever met once in the history of the AFLW, and it was a semi-final in 2023 in which the Adelaide Crows won by 67 points. So, interesting matchup, interesting time to have only ever met each other. Both teams obviously very different from then, but I think Adelaide on paper just looked too strong, certainly at home, and Sydney not in the best form the last 2 weeks, but they are certainly capable of bouncing back. Now we got Brisbane and the Tigers. Will Brisbane Football Club be celebrating a premiership from their men's team the day before? Maybe, but this will be Brisbane Richmond at Brighton Homes Arena on Sunday afternoon, 3:05 Australian Eastern Standard Time kickoff. Brisbane fighting to try and fight for a top 4 spot, and this is the perfect opportunity for them. The Tigers 0-6, Brisbane 3-3, with a pretty healthy percentage. If they win this one comfortably, all of a sudden their season is looking great again. These 2 teams have met each other quite a few times, not since 2023 round 1 when the Tigers won by 6 points, but of course Brisbane went on to win the premiership that year, so I think Brisbane will be fine with it. 2022 they met in the finals and the Brisbane Lions beat them by 17 points, and in 2022 they met a few weeks before that, 5 weeks before that, when the Tigers won by 4 points. So Tigers actually have an okay record against the Lions. However, so far from what we've seen, Richmond just don't quite have the talent or the skill so far to compete with opposition throughout a 4-quarter performance. So I think we safely say Brisbane win this. Upsets happen. It might happen here, but it's not something that you would ever tip in your right mind, I don't think. The final game of the round is over in the West. It's going to be West Coast v GWS Giants, who are on a 2-game winning streak going into this game. The 2 teams have met many times before. Multiple times is probably the better explanation there. They met round 5 last year and the Eagles won it by 24. They met in round 6 of the year before and the Giants won that one by 20 points. All the recent meetings between these 2 teams have actually been Giants home games. So a West Coast home game here, you would suggest West Coast probably going quite comfortable favourites, not massive favourites, but you'd imagine favourites enough. And the form, I think they haven't been great over the last couple of weeks. The Eagles, obviously losing to Dockers was disappointing, and then kind of got comfortably beaten by the Demons last week. Is a bit sad, or not sad, but a bit disappointing for them. Whereas Giants are the reverse. They really struggled early season, and when they'd lost to Collingwood and Gold Coast by round 4, I was starting to think that maybe they would really struggle to find too many opportunities to win matches this year, and then they came out and beat the Bulldogs in a really good performance, and then in an even better performance came out and beat Sydney Swans. So they threw their season on its head across a 2-week period. All of a sudden you got to think, well, maybe they are a chance here. I still think West Coast will be too good, but maybe you just think they are a chance. Our tips for round 7 are here, and this is how we see them. We're going Geelong in an absolute ripper against the Hawks by 4 points on Thursday night. That game could go absolutely either way. Demons should be too good for Gold Coast. We've got them by 27. Kangaroos are too good for everyone so far this year. We're going by 55. It could be more. Blues by 8 points over Dockers. I can see that being a really good game. Collingwood, just based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I think get the win here by 11 points. But I'm not confident. Port Adelaide by 16 points over the Saints. I just think Port Adelaide overall are a slightly better team than the Saints. Crows by 7 points over Sydney in a really tight and good game. The Lions should be too strong for the winless Richmond Tigers by 42. And I've got the Eagles finishing the round with a 15-point win. And that is how I have the round. 38 out of 54 going into this week. It's a big weekend. Let me know in the comments below what your tips are for this weekend. Who do you see being the best team this weekend? Can anyone stop the Roos? I don't think so at the moment. But right now, that is everything we have for AFLW. Round 6 and 7. It's a big weekend of football, obviously, with the AFL men's competition. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. We've got videos going out every single day, basically, for that. We're going to have a preview going out before the game. That'll be on Friday. And then we'll have a match review with full player ratings going live on Sunday on the YouTube channel. So go check it out. All Aussie Rules over there. And I thank you for joining. I hope you liked this video. Hit the like button if you did. If you are watching the grand final this weekend, I hope your team wins. If you're watching the AFLW this weekend, obviously, I hope your team goes well. I hope you enjoy it. I'll be back on Monday with a full wrap of the AFL men's grand final and season. And we'll be back with more AFLW content next Thursday with a round 7 review and round 8 preview. I'm Jay. This is All Aussie Rules. And we'll catch you on the next one.